evening, everybody, and welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Pastor Jesse Bailey, and tonight on The Bridge, we're taking on something that's a little controversial. All right, who's joking? We're always taking on something that's a little controversial here on The Bridge. But listen, it's a little bit extra controversial tonight. And what we're going to be talking about is dealing with the left mindset and how this liberal thinking always leads to irrational actions. And that's the reason that's a little bit more controversial is because I'm lumping a people group together, which is something that I don't like to do. I like to have every person, individual, stand on their own merits. But there's a specific reason why I'm doing that tonight. But before we get into all that, just want to remind everybody that here on The Bridge, we are about hearing everyone's perspective. So we want to keep it bold, keep it balanced, and keep it biblical. Our perspective is a biblical worldview. So if that's not your worldview, we respect that and we invite the conversation. And in that inviting the conversation, we literally want to have a conversation with you tonight. So you can do that by participating on whatever platform you're watching on, whether it's YouTube or Facebook, or you can text in by using the number that's on your screen right now. That is area code 818-835-4030, 818-835-4030. We do all of this live, so there's no editing tricks on here. We can have a real conversation, and I'm not going to take a question off later on just because it's a difficult one. If you have a difficult question to challenge my worldview, and I hope you give me the opportunity to do the same, challenge your worldview. So with that, let's get into this tonight. The leftist mindset and why there's not a whole lot of logic in that. Now, before we get into this, I need to define some terms here. So when we talk about leftist mindset, liberal mindset, what are we talking about? What do we mean? Certainly, it's not just a political position. It's more of a worldview. The leftist, progressive, liberal mindset. And the reason I feel comfortable taking such a broad brush and saying the left and the liberal mindset, and then putting something along with that, where I would dare say that it leads to irrational actions, is because of this concept of group thinking. I did an episode last year about this. You can go back and look that up. But group thinking is a real phenomenon in which a human being's desire to be accepted, to be loved, to belong to a group drives them to embrace and take on all of the ideas of that particular group that they belong to. So a leftist mindset or even a right-leaning mindset, you will typically see that there's a lot of similarities, almost all kinds of, almost all of these similarities in the way that they think. For example, if you are a right-wing conservative, chances are you appreciate the Second Amendment, want to own guns and probably do, are against abortion, believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, are proud of America and believe that we're still a great nation. You do not believe that we are systemically racist. You do not believe that critical race theory should be taught in schools. And you probably believe or voted for Donald Trump. So those are just some assumptions on the right. And we can do the same thing on the left. Typically speaking, when you see people who are on the left, they embrace similar perspectives. So they believe that love is love and that a man and a woman can marry a man and a woman can marry a woman. They probably believe that there's multiple genders and that you get to choose. They're probably for a woman's choice to end the life of the baby that's inside their womb. They probably do not like guns, would like tighter gun control, and they probably all been vaccinated. I mean, that's kind of the way group thinking works. When you're in a group, you take on the mindset of that particular group. So I just wanted to give that definition, first and foremost, of group thinking. And then when I say leftist or liberal or progressive, what I mean by that is that mindset that leans towards the progression of human nature towards self. That mindset that progresses human nature more towards self and feeling, I should say. So when we're talking about a leftist mindset, that's usually a mindset where people embrace how people feel more than what is real. That's what I'm talking about. Now I'm gonna have to explain that a little bit too, because that probably sets some people off right off the bat. Because after all, the left typically is the ones that says follow the science. They claim to be the more rational, scientific wing of our political system or our social system. But is that really the case? I'm going to present a case tonight that the leftist liberal thinking is actually what we call in the biblical worldview a carnal mind. A carnal mind. The Bible talks about being spiritually minded and being carnally minded. The difference is that the carnal mind seeks after those things that will satisfy its own flesh. We all have natural desires within ourselves, natural impulses, and that word is important, impulse, that drive us to want and desire certain things. And the Bible speaks of the carnal mind as having no restraint to pursue these selfish and fleshly desires. It wants to do what it wants to do without restriction. To be spiritually minded is to embrace the order of God. It means that you actually put down your own desires and take up what God says is right. That is the idea of having a spiritual mind, that you embrace the truth of God, put down what you feel like in a moment, and bring about God's best in a situation. And I believe wholeheartedly that the leftist progressive mindset is carnally motivated. It wants to do what it wants to do. It does not want the restrictions or the restraint of a natural biblical order. And you see this reflected in a lot of the decisions that the left makes. The rationale or behind making these decisions. So we're going to go through just a couple different hot topics, current situations where there's a distinct difference between the leftist mindset and the right mindset. And I just want to take a look at these and let's compare. What is the position and then what is the end result? And that's one of the important things when we're talking about what is rational, what is logical, what is the ability to make good, sound decisions, is what is that decision going to be down the road? See, one of the earmarks of a carnal mind is the inability to look beyond the immediate to the potential end of a line of thinking. It's the difference between instant gratification and delayed gratification. You know, a long time ago, they did the marshmallow experiment. Many of you are probably familiar about this. I had lunch with a gentleman this last week and reminded me of it. And in the marshmallow experiment, they took a bunch of different kids from different backgrounds, and they sat them in a room and put a camera on them. And in front of them, they put one marshmallow. And they told the kids, if I leave the room, you can eat the marshmallow if you want. But if the marshmallow's still there when I come back, I'll give you 2 marshmallows. So they put the marshmallow in front of all these different kids, left the room. And what's interesting is they took that section of kids that decided to eat the marshmallow right then and there because they were given permission to. And then they took the group that decided to wait until the person got back so they could have 2 marshmallows. They took those separate groups and they followed them. And over the years, they found that the group that was more willing to wait to get that second marshmallow had more successful careers, more successful marriages, and attained a higher socioeconomic status in life than those who went for the instant gratification of just eating that marshmallow then instead of being able to get 2. It translated into their adulthood. I think what would be interesting would be to find out how many of them are progressives and how many of them are conservatives. I think that would be an interesting thing to find out if they have that data. But the point is this. that there's a way of thinking that looks to the now, and then there's a way of thinking that looks to the future. And my argument tonight is that the group thinking and mindset that surrounds the left leans towards the instant gratification, does not look beyond what's in front, does not look beyond what is comfortable to them now, and could quite possibly lead towards irrational actions and greater chaos. And I'd like to take a look at that just practically, and we're also going to look at it biblically. So let's take a look at a couple scenarios here on how this plays out. Let's start with the idea of homosexuality and transgenderism. Homosexuality in the Bible is a sin. It is clear in the scriptures. Anyone who says otherwise is twisting the Bible. It's very plain. So that's not the argument here. The reason it is a sin is because it goes against the order and the command of God. And if something goes against the order and the command of God, then that means that it is going to result in chaos. It's going to result in a breakdown of our society, breakdown of the individual, and that was something that we would assume to be true if God says that this is wrong. If he says it's wrong, then there should be some consequence to that. Well, let's take a look at following that line of thinking to its logical end. If we believe that a man can be with a man and a woman can be with a woman, despite the obvious natural physiological pairing that exists between man and woman, then that opens up the possibility for other anomalies. For example, now, are we not just saying a man could be with a man, but we're saying a woman could be with a woman? That leads now into transgenderism, where now you don't even have to say that you're a man. You don't even have to say that you're a woman. Now you can choose to be a man, a woman, or any number of greater than 56 made-up genders now. And that is supposed to be a healthy way of thinking, living, and expressing reality. And I would argue that it is none of the above. It is not logical. It is not rational. What type of society does that lead to? What does that lead to for children? What does that lead to for the health, the mental health of the individuals who are involved in that? What you're doing is you're saying something is true that is not true. Therefore, you are inviting delusion, the inability to discern what is real and what is fake, and then you allow people to step into this delusion that is eventually going to have a serious impact on people. This is an example of that. Let me just show you this. Now, before I play this video, I want to make a disclaimer that there is some element to this that people may find offensive. So this is a transgender, this is a man and a woman who've tried to switch their genders and have a child together. And this is the result of this type of thinking. Let's watch the video.
Hey, Mama. Do you have a minute to talk?
Yeah.
You know, early on,
Right, so
we had a
here's a
little
couple,
hiccup with not wanting to sign a
Talking
gender
to
sex the baby.
the woman
It's
with the
very
glasses. That is a woman, a biological woman.
With
And they're talking about what the gender of the baby is, and they don't want to give the baby a gender. Now you can see right there, he's pregnant. That's the
I'm
man
very
who wants
unprepared
to
to
be
give
called a woman.
birth by myself.
And there's the man
Something's coming.
giving birth. Now let me just be blunt here. You're a woman because you have a uterus, an ovaries, and a vagina, and the ability to deliver a child. Now look at this. That is a man
Oh, I put it on here.
trying to nurse a child.
The baby has been able to latch, but
Latch
I've
onto
not been
what?
able to
You're not a
produce any
man.
milk.
I
It's
mean,
okay,
you're a man. You're not a woman.
because we're gonna supplement the feeding with formula so
You're gonna
that
supplement-
my baby's still getting the nutrients that they need. I appreciate you so much for all your work.
Okay.
I
All right, that's
appreciate
enough.
you.
So in this scenario, we see a biological woman who took hormones to grow facial hair, had a double mastectomy to remove her breasts, which are designed by God to give milk to a child. You have mammary glands. that produce milk to nourish the child that you deliver through your birth canal. So this woman gives birth to the child, who then hands it over to a biological man who's taken hormones and possibly had surgery to give the appearance of breasts where there are no mammary glands, and they try and latch the child onto the chest of this transgender woman man. In my opinion, that is a level of child abuse. It is certainly delusion. And this is what we're facing now because of this line of thinking. When you violate natural law, basic biology, it leads to an unhealthy level of delusion. And now they are trying to take this child, whom they don't want to determine is a boy or a girl, even though the genitalia already tells you that, and they are latching this child onto a biological man's chest and then have this delusion that for some reason he's going to just start producing milk. That is insanity in its truest definition, being the inability to tell the difference between reality and falsehood. This type of thinking is irrational, and as we've discussed on other shows, leads to chaos. You can see how having a society that does not have the ability to discern what is a man and what is a woman can lead to other problems. What else will you not be able to discern? What else will you not be able to tell the difference between right and wrong? Right there, you might say, oh, well, that just impacts them. Yeah, but that type of thinking bleeds into every other area of society. Let's take a look at some other things, just briefly. Let's look at abortion. So the left believes that it is a woman's right to choose whether or not they murder the unborn child in their womb. Yet, if someone walks up to a woman who is pregnant and strikes her in the stomach so that she miscarries and loses the child, that individual will be charged with murder, and all the feminists would be yelling up and down, screaming about how you killed the child. So you can see there's no logic here. In one case, this is a living child who someone murdered because they struck the pregnant mother. But on the other hand, no, it's not a life, it's not a child at all, it's just a bunch of cells. Well, if that's the case, then why do we charge people for second-degree murder when they strike a woman and they kill her, or they killed a woman and she's pregnant? That's a double homicide. Why do we do that? But yet you want to say that this child is not alive. That's irrational. It is either alive or it is not. It is either human life or it is not human life. So this back and forth in deciding what is true and what is false, depending on the situation and what is convenient for the person, again, goes along with that carnal mindset that reality shifts to whatever I feel in a moment or whatever is convenient to me. That is unstable. That is an unstable way of thinking and approaching life and circumstance. Let's take another look. Let's go into the vaccinations. So let me say this. My whole thing with vaccinations is let people choose. Let people choose whether they want to take this experimental vaccine or they do not want to take the experimental vaccine. If you want to take the vaccine, that is your prerogative. All power to you. But if someone does not want to take the vaccine because they have not felt comfortable with the results of the vaccine, with the limited amount of time that the vaccine has been in existence and the lack of long-term studies, then they should have the right to do that without being pressured by the media, liberal doctors, and every other person that's on TV right now and making them feel like they're going to cause, the end of the world if they don't get a vaccine. Here's the problem with that. If everybody who got a vaccine is perfectly safe, then why are you worried about people who don't want to get the vaccine? You're safe. How does me not getting the vaccine put you who's gotten the vaccine at any risk? Oh, well, you guys are causing the deaths of all these people by not getting the vaccine. Well, guess what? Actually, it was whoever created this darn COVID that is responsible for that, which all evidence is pointing to the Wuhan Virology Research Institute in Wuhan, China. So how is it that, let's say, I don't want to get the vaccine? How does that impact you and the people that are around you that do have the vaccine? How am I hurting you? Yet everyone wants to make it sound like you darn anti-vaxxers are causing all of this to happen. No, we're not. Not at all. Not at all. And again, I think the idea of inoculation and vaccination is a wonderful idea so long as the people that are producing it can be found trustworthy and there's no nefarious agenda behind it. That's what I don't trust. I think the idea itself, the introduction of a weakened or dead virus to the body to give it the opportunity to grow stronger, that's awesome. I'm just not down for some of the things that are considered poison that are in them. I don't like the idea that you're using aborted fetal tissue to grow many of these cells that you need. That goes against my beliefs as a Christian. But again, getting back to the logic of it, I have yet to have anyone explain to me why it is so important that we get this vaccine. Everyone who wants to get it, they can get it. Those who are at great risk, go for it. You have comorbidities, you're in that age range, that's great. But when there's such a high survival rate around it, I find it hard to understand why there's such a strong push, even lotteries, to get people to get this. It makes it look desperate. And certainly not desperate to save lives. See, the only reason that you would be upset if I didn't get the vaccine is because you want me to live. And you know what? Maybe you do love me that much, that you want me to live and you don't want me to pass it on to somebody else who may not want the vaccine. Well, the reality is that people who got the vaccine are still getting COVID. So it's not proven 100% effective at stopping it. We see that people who don't have the vaccine are still recovering at a very high rate, by the way. And they have the antibodies in their system that have no side effects. So if you want me to live so deeply, if that really is the motivation here, because it's not about whether you live who have the vaccine, because apparently you're okay. If it's about you want me to live so much, if that's your thing, you want me to live so much that you want to force me to get a vaccine, then why aren't we forcing people to stop smoking? Why don't we force people to stop drinking? That would save a lot more lives than forcing people to get vaccines. If you forced people to stop smoking and forced people to stop drinking, that would save way more lives. I mean, secondhand smoke alone kills over 45,000 people every year. And that's secondhand smoke. That's not the people who are choosing to smoke. That's far into the hundreds of thousands. Just secondhand smoke. People who don't want to be around smoke, but they have to because someone around them is smoking. Why aren't we forcing them to stop and calling them selfish? Because that would be logical. See, it does not make sense, the approach that they're taking with the vaccines. Let's go to another issue here. Defunding the police. Defunding the police. That is inherently democratic in its push. That was Democratic cities that pushed that, Democratic representatives, and the liberal Hollywood elite who was pushing that. You don't have Republicans saying defund the police. Let's follow that rationale to its logical end. We want to defund the police. And by the way, this was absolutely a Democratic push. I was on the Black Lives Matter calls to get trained on how to go about defunding the police. So I sat on the call with a Black Lives Matter representative who had a Zoom conference call and taught everybody how to go in and pressure their city council to make sure that they defunded the police. The rationale was this: if we have less police on the street, then we'll have less police interactions, which means less police brutality. I'm serious. This is verbatim. If we have less police on the street, we will have less police interactions, And we will have less police brutality and less people killed by the police. That is the most irrational, illogical point. I mean, I was biting my lip trying not to say something on this call because I was trying to get all the information possible. One of their other rationale was that the police only solve about 15% of crimes, so we really don't need the police anyway. That was a talking point. So let's take a look at that last one first. So police only solve about 15% of crimes. One of the major reasons that police are only able to solve about 15% of the crimes is because the community does not work with them in order to help solve the crimes. No one wants to be a snitch. Snitches get stitches. So as a result of that, these neighborhoods continue to have crime happen on a daily basis because they will not help the police stop it, because this idea that the police are bad has been perpetuated in these communities by the media, and now they don't want to work with the police. That's why they only have a 15% success rate. And I don't even know the exact numbers that go into that, but let's just say that they were correct. That is illogical, irrational. Just because they only solve 15% of the crimes. And let's just thank God that they're solving 15%, but you don't understand that their presence also prevents many crimes. It is a statistical fact that when the police are present and visible in neighborhoods, crime goes down because people don't want to commit crimes around the police because they don't want to deal with them. So again, they don't think beyond what they're feeling. They see Derek Chauvin with his knee on the back of George Floyd and, oh, we need to defund the police. Let's not talk even about the more nefarious reasons why. Now let's get back to that first one. That if you have less police on the street, then you have less police interactions and less brutality. There's just so many things wrong with that logic. You take less police on the street, you have more crime. You have less police interactions. That means you have more criminal civilian interactions. That is a fact. And let me just prove that to you real quick. Look at these statistics here. Hold on, that's the wrong one.
Do you have a minute?
That's the wrong one. There we go. We're going to get to those videos in a second. But I just want to prove that real quick. Look at these stats. This is from the National Fraternal Order of Police. These are murder rates reported May 25th of this year. In Philadelphia, and this is just murder. This isn't armed robbery. This isn't assault. This isn't breaking and entering. This is just murder. Philadelphia, 40%. Minneapolis, 56%. Portland, 800% increase in murder. In good old Portland, where they shut down the police and took over everything. That's a good idea. Let's have anarchy. What happens when you have anarchy? Murder goes up 800%. New York City, 22%. Chicago, 22%. Los Angeles, 27%. Good old Washington, D.C., 35% increase in murder. In murder. What did you think would happen when you remove police from the street? You think the criminals are going to be like, oh man, now that the cops are gone, I don't want to do crime anymore. You know, seeing the police out on the street actually encouraged me to murder. Now that they're gone, I don't want to murder anymore. I don't want to steal. That is irrational thinking that has led to chaos. We have seen overall crime go up by 200+% in these cities that were defunded. Completely irrational. Let's talk about CRT. So, critical race theory. We want to go in and teach everybody in school that they are white people are inherently racist. That race is simply a social construct that has nothing to do with your actual biology. It has nothing to do with culture. It doesn't have anything to do with God's expression and his creativity, making different people so we can appreciate one another. No. It has to do with everything is about white supremacy. What is the end result of that type of thinking. Let's have a look-see. Watch this video.
All white people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, oh, maybe some of us have worked it out.
Hear that, white people?
No,
you all are
always gonna
racist.
be racist, actually. So even when
You're always
you're
going
on
to be
your
racist.
path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human.
Now white
Like,
people are
that
not even
actually,
human.
Instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist. So I just want y'all to know that up front.
So here's the end result of critical race theory. White people are racist. You can't do anything about it. You're just going to be racist. Now, I understand that Miss Shackelford here, this is an old video. This is several years old. But this CRT has been around for decades. And these are the types of things that are being taught. That white people are inherently racist. We saw Project Veritas break the story of some training that was happening in, I can't remember what grocery store it was, but one of the guys came forward. And they were teaching them how white children are shown to be racist at a young age. As young as 6 months old. 0 to 6 months, they can start showing racist tendencies, preferring one color over another. What is the end result of that type of thinking? That means that white people are inherently, by nature, racist, and that black people are, by birth, victims. When you tell somebody they're a victim and they can't do something because of the color of their skin, what do you think that's going to do? That's going to make them feel like they can't. And then we wonder why the black community performs lower in all educational standards than any other race. There's a higher level of incarcerations because you constantly tell people they're victims. How about we do this? Here's a right, conservative, biblical mindset. What if you go in and you tell these kids they can do anything they put their mind to because they're made in the image and likeness of God? What if we told these black children that God loved them so much, he chose for them to be on this planet, and that they can accomplish great things? What if the daddies actually stayed in the home and raised up these children instead of being irresponsible and having multiple children with multiple women and taking care of none of them? What if we did that? What if we taught that? Abstinence, marriage, and fatherhood. What if we put money into that instead of telling everybody that they're a victim and that white people are racist to stir up strife? That type of thinking leads to division and chaos. Yeah, it just makes me shake my head. There's zero logic. Zero logic behind any of this. There's so many things that we could talk about on this. Immigration. What's your immigration policy? Open up the borders, shuffle everybody in, take loads of children and fly them into places like Tennessee and just drop them off there and say, deal with it. We have over 1 million people that have come into the country illegally. We've had people having to move off of their land because of the constant threat of people coming through, trying to steal cars, threatening people's lives, becoming violent. This is a horrific situation that we have at the border. You guys were whining and complaining when Trump was detaining people and had children there. Have you seen what these places look like now? How full they are? But no, not a peep out of anyone. Because it's not about what's logical and what's rational. It's about what's political and how you feel. You're just looking for a reason to come against someone who was in office instead of actually look at the solution. Now that this administration is doing a horrible job on the border, absolutely horrible. President Kamala Harris wouldn't even go to the border. When she said she went to the border, she didn't even go all the way down because they don't want to be associated with it. Because the second they took over, weak leadership allowed a flood of illegals to come in. Open borders is bad thinking. What happens if we just open the borders? And I'm not just talking about the southern border of Mexico. What if we opened it up to Canada and the east and west, and people just come in whenever they wanted? What does that lead to? Of course, it's going to lead to a ton of people coming in who do not have perhaps the means to really start off and have a good place to be. We've seen that when we have an increase in illegal immigration, there's an increase in crime. It's because a lot of these people don't know where to go. They don't have anything to really stand on yet. I'm all for allowing people into our nation, but it has to be done properly. It has to be done with process. There has to be order and structure. I'm all for making it an easier process, but when we just open the borders, you allow evil in. Borders exist for a reason. They are not just boundaries that people can't cross that determine what is one nation and what is another. It represents ideas. It represents a culture. It represents a way of thinking. On this side, there's a way of thinking and a culture, an order and a structure that allows there to be blessings that want people to come in. On the other side of that border is chaos, which is why people are leaving it. So when we open up the borders, we don't just open it up to people, we open it up to the culture and the chaos that made them want to leave. But unfortunately, when all you think about is, oh, the poor people, yes, the poor people, let's help them. The best way to help them is go over there and wipe out those cartels, put some uncorrupt people in government so that the people can actually thrive. Mexico, Central America, they are thriving with natural resources, but the problem is that they have corrupt criminals who want to take over their governments, corrupt everything, and make it impossible for people to live. But then the same people who say, oh, well, we need to let them over here so they can escape tyranny, don't want the U.S. government to go over there and do anything about the tyranny. Then you start calling us colonizers and imposing our culture on people. Well, if our culture was that bad, then how come everybody wants to come into it? No, our culture of freedom and liberty is excellent. And that is why people are coming here. People aren't getting in boats and leaving Florida to go to Cuba or Haiti. No, they're coming over here. There's a reason why Cubans are waving the American flag in their streets while we're sitting over here burning it. That is illogical, irrational, emotional thinking. Lots of reasons. Lots of reasons why that mindset just does not work. And here's the heart of it. The heart of it is this. People on the left tend to be empaths, very emotional. This is why you see a lot of artists tend to be liberal and progressive. A lot of singers, a lot of actors, painters. This is why so much of the entertainment industry falls in that place. Well, there's some other reasons for that. But that emotional mindset that feels the heart of other people, that is a good thing. That is a blessing. However, we cannot be led by our feelings. Feelings are great motivators, but horrible leaders. We have to have rational, logical thinking. So that's part of the reason. Part of the reason is that you lead with your emotions. When you lead with your emotions, you have what's called amygdala hijacking. Your feelings override your rational thinking so that you don't make decisions that have a good long-term result, like defunding the police. That was a horrible idea, and we're seeing the result of it now. So much so that places like Minneapolis are coming back in and trying to refund the police. But now they've offended the best police officers, and they're leaving by droves. Because you were in a moment, you got mad, didn't think about the end result, and then just started pushing this agenda. Now, that's the nice kind of cop out excuse for it. And it's true. I don't want to say it's a cop out. It's true. Emotional people make quick, impulsive decisions. Emotional people tend to be more impulsive, and impulsive decisions are usually not the best decisions to make. Now, the other reason goes back to that carnal mind. We want what our flesh wants, and that is in direct contrast to God. So we will purposely go after things and pursue policies that get in agreement with us just being able to do whatever we want to do. The carnal mind does not like restraints. It does not like order. It does not like being denied what it wants. And there's a wicked and demonic even plan to try and just get people to pursue their lustful desires. We have the Vice President of the United States saying that she wants to, what were her terms? Not legalize prostitution, but, gosh, I can't remember the term right now. But basically, she wants to decriminalize, there it is, decriminalize sex workers. So we're not going to legalize prostitution. We're going to decriminalize sex workers, which is basically the same thing. So when we start making decisions like this, what are we what are we doing? What are we saying? We are removing restraints, and when we remove restraints, the flesh comes in and chaos takes over. And in this first half of the year, that's exactly what we've seen. We see this administration come in with a leftist, liberal mindset, and we see chaos coming in. Here's another example of leftist, chaotic thinking that's causing problems. They keep printing money and giving it out. Let's just give everything away for free. Free is not a real word. Nothing is free. As a result of them constantly printing up all this money, by the way, very little of this money is actually going towards the American people. They're shipping money all over the world and keeping very small amount of it to help people here in the United States of America. It's absolutely insane. All these bills, $1.9 trillion. They just keep printing this money. What does that do? Number one, you're sending money outside of the United States of America to God knows where. And then you're driving up inflation and lowering the value of the dollar, because that's what happens when you just print things up and start handing things out for free. You lower the value. You devalue it. It becomes less valuable. So the US dollar is going to fall as the standard for the world, weakening our economic position again. And by the way, this is not on accident. This is very intentional. See, there's a lack of thinking, but then there's some very intentional, nefarious plans that are at work as well. But this is where everyone is leaning. This is where we see our culture floating with this type of irrational thinking. And we're already beginning to see the chaos. It is chaos here economically. It is chaos here socially. There is not one good thing that has resulted from this type of thinking. And the craziest thing is this. History teaches us that this doesn't work. You can go back to all these different cultures. This doesn't work. Communism doesn't work. Socialism doesn't work. How many countries do you need to see that in? How many countries do you need to see this played out right in front of our eyes? Cuba, Venezuela, China, Soviet Union. Do we need to see more? Do we need to see 150 million more people die as a result of this type of economic and government system? But that is what we're leaning towards. So listen, it is irrational. It does not make sense. But the crazy thing is they say it so much, they begin to try and make you think you're crazy for actually thinking logically. but you're not. I'll tell you that right now. You are not. Let's go to the phones here, and let's see what people are thinking here. Let's go to YouTube first. Let's see. Yeah, amen. Amen. Yeah, his brother says there's no money in the cure for vaccines. It's true. It says, someone says, I saw someone holding a sign that said anti-white. But you know what? You're okay with that. People are okay with that. Go ahead and wear a sign that says anti-black and see what happens to you. But you can be anti-white now. It's ridiculous. I can't believe this stuff. But that's the result of CRT. That's what happens. Oh, look at that. There we go. All right. Yeah, my camera cut off and then just jumped right back in. All right. So hold on one second. Let me get this dialed in again. All right, there we go. It gets so hot in here because of the lights. I think the camera overheats a little bit and starts to shut down. But we're back on. We're good. All right. This person says, progressives never think anything through, always have knee-jerk reactions. Now, I don't want to say the term always, but that does seem to be the case, and we saw that in these examples here. Another thing, we had all these people pushing, hey, everybody needs to get on the ventilator. You know, if they're having trouble breathing, put them on the ventilator, put them on the ventilator. Well, turns out that 80% of people that were put on the ventilators died. But when it comes to hydroxychloroquine, now it shows that there's a 200% increase in your likelihood to survive. But they didn't want to give them that. Why didn't we go with some tested theories instead of just throwing people on a ventilator? Hypocritical standards. Yeah. It's a one world government plan to reduce the population by using the jab, we'll call it, to combine with the next bioweapon released to kill more people. We shall see. I wouldn't put it past them. It says if the liberals can wipe out police presence, then the UN works police can come and control the populace. This is setting up for a one world order. We got a lot of people feeling the same way. I would tend to agree with you. In terms of immigration, unless you're Cuban, then the president says if you come by boat, you'll never reach the U.S. It's insane. I believe there's a greater plan. Part of the plan is to destroy the U.S. Absolutely. They do not want the United States of America. We are the last symbol of freedom in this world. And if you think I'm lying, just look at Cuba. They're waving the American flag. They're not waving the Canadian flag. They're not waving the British flag. They're waving the American flag because America stands for liberty. That's what that means to those who are oppressed around the world. It means liberty. You have people escaping from the Communist China Party and coming to the United States of America to wage warfare against them because of their egregious human rights violations and oppression of people of faith in particular. America, nowhere else. The last bastion of freedom in the world. This is too big. I just heard a discussion on it. Children forced to wear masks in school and everywhere else. Can't see and learn to read facial expressions. A form of social isolation. This is coming from a nurse, by the way. There has been a huge concern by social professionals how this may affect our children's social development skills with potential impact for the rest of their lives. That is true. I believe that 100%. It says if you decriminalize things, there will be less crime. That is true. If you make everything legal and turn it into the purge, I guess there's less crime because everybody's just doing whatever they want. It says a good rule of thumb to live by, proposed by Henry Cloud. Play the movie. This means think it out loud, think it out, and look at the possible results before you make a decision. Many people lack this ability. Very true. And we have to be fair, both left and right. People lack this ability. But it seems to be a policy of the left. One rat says to the other rat, "Are you getting the vaccine?" The other replies, "I'm waiting for them to finish testing it on the humans." That's a good one. So says this person's asking for specific policies to illustrate the points. So let me go back and see if we could be a little bit more specific on the vaccines. They're in terms of policy, they're getting ready to release the vaccine passport. We already see that in France. France has released the vaccine passport. You are not allowed to go shopping in certain areas, to do business unless you have this. And if you try to, they now have a 6-month minimum in prison. Britain has just released this and said that they're going to be enforcing mandatory vaccines, and you have to get this vaccine passport if you want to be in movie theaters and participate in certain businesses. So in terms of the vaccines, yes, that's one policy that's in place. They're already doing that in New York. They have the Excelsior system that they're running. And here in California, Governor Newsom has already approved of a vaccine passport system to be rolled out here. So again, it's happening left and right. All right, that's my camera overheating again. I would turn the AC on in here, but it's too loud. So a couple other areas. Abortion. I mean, you see in Virginia, abortion, they are trying to make it so that you can kill a child even if they're on the table. This is a real bill that has been pushed. So it's not just late-term abortion, it's after-birth abortions. So they want to, and you can look this up, but even after the child has been born, the parent and the doctor can determine whether or not they killed the child, and they can still kill the child. This is something that is being pushed by the left. But that follows that line of thinking. If you can kill the baby at 2 to 3 weeks, why can't you kill it at 4 to 6, 10 to 12, 20 to 30, 30 to 40? Afterwards, where does this end? Where's the end of this? If you can kill a child in the womb, you can kill it outside of the womb now? That is a policy. Transgenderism. There's no policy per se, but the verbiage right now, and they're moving in this direction, and you see laws like this in Canada, where if I don't use your pronouns, if you're a biological man and I dare to call you that, then that could be a hate crime, and it's also considered violence. So if they pass laws that call it violence, if I call someone a man because they're a biological man and not a woman, or if I say she but it wants to be called Zim, then that could be a human rights violation for me. They can bring charges against me. Those are the types of policies that they're beginning to push. Defunding the police, those are actual policies. Los Angeles County, they defunded the police, took away $150 million. Here's some good rationale. The police need more training. They keep shouting that. They need more diversity training. They need more training. here's a good idea. Let's take away $150 million and give it to some social program instead of giving the police more training, which they're always saying. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense for you to say that the police need to be trained more and then take away money so they have less to be trained with. That's illogical and irrational thinking. By the way, I do not believe that the police need to be trained more. They go through a ton of training. All the people who say that have never talked to a police officer or see the regimen of training that they actually have to go through. They don't need more training. Y'all need to train your children better. You got 18 years to teach that child to not rob, not steal, to respect authority, to not hit people, to not walk around with guns, to not be in a gang, to not ride on things, to not drive away when a cop pulls you over. You got 18 years to train them. And now you want the police to be trained more? Again, it doesn't make sense. That line of thinking doesn't make sense. So, let's see. We got any other comments here? What is your view on cryptocurrency? I know a lot of people are making a lot of money on it right now. I know it's a trendy thing, but I don't trust it. Think of what cryptocurrency now means. That means that you completely forfeit all of your privacy. With cryptocurrency, they will be able to track every transaction everywhere. You go completely cashless. That means everything you have can be taken away at any time. It can be tracked at any time. So you can't go give someone $5 so they can go get some gas. No, you got to transfer that. So they just saw that you gave somebody $5. Everything becomes traceable, trackable, and you can manipulate it now. Government doesn't like what you're saying. They just take everything out of your account. They can do that now. But at least now you can have some cash on hand before they do that. But now you wouldn't be able to do that. Everything would be tracked and traced. So I don't particularly like it. I don't know a ton about it. But all I know is when you make something totally electronic, that brings it to a place where it can be completely taken away from you at any time. So not too fond of it. Not too fond of it at all. Side note, familiar with Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health? Supreme Court outcome could overturn Roe v. Wade by allowing states to decide. That would be amazing. I haven't followed that case, haven't been familiar with it, but I definitely need to do my research on that. Thank you. This person says, more police training is similar to more gun laws. Yeah. There's another irrational line of thinking. The left wants to make it more difficult for people to get guns and then pull certain guns off the street. Now, I'm not entirely against making it more difficult for people to get guns. I mean, when you look at the regiment that you have to go through so you can drive a car, that's pretty extensive, and that car is designed to travel. When you have something that is designed to kill someone, I am not opposed to making sure that these people are trained. I've said it before. In order to get a driver's license, you have to pass a test after taking a class. You have to get specific training from a licensed professional. Then you have to have 6 months of behind the wheel with responsible drivers. And then you can go and take a behind the wheel test, and then you get your license. I think that it is not unreasonable to have some steps to make sure that people are responsible. But here's the kicker with it. People who are legal gun owners, that's not the problem. It's criminals who have guns. It's not good people who have guns. So if you want to make it more difficult for people to get guns, fine. But you have to understand, if they're going to go through that much training, you should allow them to carry it so that they can actually protect themselves against the criminals who don't go through that training. They've got a whole other level of training that they've gone through that involves hurting people. It is these handguns in the hands of criminals that is driving the loss of life in this nation. It's criminals and unfortunately suicides. It is not mass shootings. It is not AR-15s. It is handguns in the hands of criminals and those who are suicidal. That is the majority of gun deaths in America. So, again, take away the guns from the good guys, mandatory gun buyback. All the bad guys are still going to have guns. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that you take the guns from the good guys and then magically think that the bad guys aren't going to get them. That is irrational, illogical, and the only reason that you would want to do that would be to disarm the people, to make it easier to overthrow them. The Second Amendment is the only thing keeping communism from just running over the United States of America. I'll tell you that right now. No doubt in my mind about that. I love this one. But God, Luke 8:17, for all that is in secret will be eventually brought into the open, and everything that is concealed will be brought to light and made known to all. Amen. I love that scripture. It says, unfortunately, increased gun training opens the question, who decides what hoops should be jumped through? The answer will be politicians. No thanks. Yeah, I get that point. You know, once you open that door, you have to do this and this and this in order to get a gun. Then yeah, I can understand that would be difficult. But we also have to be honest. The process for getting a gun now, it doesn't properly vet people. And it doesn't properly ensure that you're going to get trained. I mean, the test questions that they have, it's really a formality. It does nothing to educate. I mean, fortunately, I have people that taught me how to use a gun. And there's a culture that kind of goes along with it. You know, the good brother who just wrote in taught me how to use a gun. You know, we would go shooting together. He's a good friend of mine. He's a gun owner. He knows what he's doing. He took classes. Also, I had the benefit of going and taking a week-long class with my son and my brother-in-law and my nephew. So we got to do that. But not everybody has the opportunity to do those things on their own. So if we had the government that would teach people how to use guns, I think that could be beneficial. For example, we see that the more education you have in regards to guns, then the more respect you have for that. For example, in Israel, everybody's got to join the IDF for 2 years, and you get a level of training. And when you're in the IDF, you have to carry your gun everywhere. Now, afterwards, they have more difficult laws in order for you to get a gun, but they also know that everybody's been trained on how to use it. Same thing in Switzerland. Everybody has a gun. Guns are a big deal there, but they don't see the level of crime that we see here in America, in large part because everybody's trained and everybody knows that everybody has a gun and they're trained to use it. You know, so if we had that here, I think that would actually help with the gun problems that we see. All right, I'm going to have some major editing to do and blocking off all this camera blacking out stuff. I got to get a solution to that. Maybe you guys have one. All right, family. Well, that is all for tonight. It is about 9 o'clock. Listen, thank you guys so much for taking the time. If you appreciated this video, I'd love for you guys to like it, share it, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be switching things up a little bit. We're going to have more content coming out throughout the week, so you guys be on the lookout for that. But until next time, please keep it bold, keep it balanced, and keep it biblical. God bless you all, and have a great night. Bye-bye.